It is a function which is provided for the user to write a program, right? And API is provided by the operating system, and this API we call it as set of system calls, right? And what is the difference between a system call and function call? System call has a higher privilege level, right? The system call can do some sensitive operations, like if you want to access a memory, then you have to call, if you have to use a system call. If you want to access some data from the disk, then we have to access a system call. So if you want to access the IO devices or the hardware, then we have to use the system call. So the system call has a higher privilege level than the function call, right? Fine. Now and then we also try to understand, like we have multiple operating systems like Linux, Windows, and so on. Now, because of POSIX API, we no need to rewrite the same program in the different operating systems, right? So because all the operating system agree to have a same set of APIs, that we call it as POSIX API, okay? And we also discussed about how the system call executes, right? So in the user code, the CPU will execute the code in the user mode, whatever we type. So we use a printf function which is available from the C library, and when the CPU reads this, when the CPU executes this statement, then this printf statement, this printf function will invoke the write system call. Okay, so the printf statement, when the printf function invoke write system call, the CPU comes to the kernel mode, because the write is a system call. The system call has higher privilege level. So the CPU will come from the user mode to the kernel mode and it will execute this system call, write system call. Okay, and as a programmer, we no need to take care of system call. All happens in the background. We only use the printf function. This printf function will invoke the write system call, right? Fine. And we also discussed about different system calls related to the process. We know the fork is a system call used to create a child process, and when the operating system starts, when we initiate the operating system, then operating system creates the init process. Init process is the ancestor for all the process which is created in the operating system. And if you want the process to execute, then we use exec system call. And if you want the process to get terminated, then we use exit system call. And if you want no, you have a parent process, you have a child process. So the parent calls wait system call. Therefore, the parent wait for the child to complete the execution. Only then the parent will start execute the instructions, right? And we have discussed each of this in more detail. What happens during fork? Let's say that I have a memory image of parent. Okay, so the memory image of a process, parent process, consists of code, data, stack, and heap. So in the code, if you use a fork system call, then exact copy of the exact memory image of parent is created. That is the child process. The child will have exact copy of the parent image process, parent memory image, right? So the child will also have a code, data, stack, and heap, right? And once the child process is created, it will be added to the operating system list, right? Because operating system maintains a data structure to keep track of all the activities of the process, right? And we also try to understand with this code how this fork system call works. Each process, both parent and child, will have a different return value, right? So in the line 9, we have RC variable, that is return value. So in the line 9, we use a fork system call. Now when the fork is invoked, the child process is created. Now if you look at line 13, the value of RC is 0 for the child process, and the line 14 and 15, line 13 and 14 belongs to child process, and the line 16 belongs to parent process. Okay, and we also discussed about exit system call, and we know there are two different way where the program gets terminated. One is normal way, other one is abnormal, right? So in the case of normal one, when the program executes the last line in the main function, it gets terminated normally. And if you speak on abnormal way, if the process done some, if the process is doing something very illegal, then the operating system terminates the process, right? These are the two different way where the process get terminated. Whatever way the process get terminated, the process will remain in the system as a zombie. Now, who is going to clean this? The parent process is going to clean this, right? Let's say that you have a parent process. In the parent process, you used a fork system call, therefore the child is created, right? The child process is created. Now in the parent code, you also use a wait system call. Now when you use wait system call, the parent will wait for the child to complete the execution. When the child complete the execution, the parent will clean this process. It will remove the child process completely from the system, right? So and we also discussed that what happens if the parent process not available when the child get terminated. In that case, init process reaps or init process cleans the memory image of child process. Now the question is, why we need to clean this? Once the process get terminated, why we need to reap completely the process? Why we need to clean this? Yes? Can I have a response?
To clear up the memory because it is taking the memory.
Good. If after the process get terminated, if it still remains in the system, it makes use of, it makes the memory resources, it takes the resources of CPU. So in order to avoid that, the operating system makes sure that the process is completely reaped from the system when it is get terminated, right? If the parent is not available when the child get terminated, then the init process will take care the child and it will remove completely from the system. When the child, when the child terminated, if the parent is available, then the parent will take care the child memory image to clean completely from the system. Good. And this is the code we discussed on that. And then, yeah, so we stopped at this slide, and now we are going to discuss on EXEC system call. Now, how this works? Uh, did you understand how EXEC system call works? Can I have a response? Please be interactive. Uh, what do you mean by EXEC?
Education.
Okay. Before everyone is okay the way we are going.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then I
Yes, sir.
expected. Yeah. Good. Fine. I expecting some interaction in the class. Right. Good. I hope you will do that. Fine. So the next system call is EXEC. Right. Now what happens during EXEC system call? What happens during EXEC system call? Okay, fine, all right. So here is the parent process. The memory image of process, parent process consists of?
Code, data, stack, and heap.
Good. The memory image of any process consists of code, data, stack, and heap. And here we have a parent process, right? Now, in the code of parent process, If I use fork, what happens? If I use fork system call, what happens?
Child process is created.
Child process is created. Okay. Can you tell me more on that? Will the child will have this exact copy of the parent
Yes,
process?
sir. Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. So when the parent use fork system call in the code, then the exact copy of parent is created. That we call it as child process. Now the child will have a code, data, stack, and heap, right? The child is created from the parent. Therefore, the child will have same code of parent, same data, same stack, and same heap, right? Now, uh, now the question is, what if you want the child now at this point of time, okay, at this point of time, both parent and child execute the same code or the different code?
Same code.
Same.
Same code.
Same.
Good. Both parent and child execute the same code. Now, do you think this is useful?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No.
No, right? Both the process executes the same instruction and gives the same output. So this is not very useful, right? Now the question is, what if the parents want child to execute something different? In such case, what we do? You want child to execute completely different code from the parent. So what we do for that? What we use?
EXEC. Exactly.
Good. Yeah, we have to use a system called EXEC. So when you use EXEC in the child code, when you invoke EXEC system call in the child code, then the child will have a different memory images. Okay, the child will have a memory image with different code, different data, different stack, and different heap. Okay, because it is no longer executes the code of parent. Okay.
So, sir, at this position, we can say that parent and child process executes data independently, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It executes independently. Yeah. The child will have a different code, will have a different data, so it will execute the code very differently. See, only when fork, okay, only when it creates the copy of memory image of child and parent will be same. After some point of time, the memory image of child can be updated independently. The parent will not interfere with child memory image. The child will not interfere with parent memory image. Both the memory image can be updated independently. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine, good. So there are several variants of EXEC. Okay, so when we run a program, we can pass some arguments. Okay, when we run a program, we can pass some arguments. Okay, so we set up a new process in any way we want. To understand how this EXEC works, if you look at this code in the line 11, okay, in the line 11, we have a fork statement. Now the parent has created the child process. From line 15, from line 15 to line 21, you have a code for the child process. Okay, now the child is no longer just run the code of parent. Instead, the child process has called, if you look at line 21, the child process has have called EXEC system call, right? So in this, you can pass an argument to the program. Inside the parenthesis, you pass an argument to this program. And here the child runs to count the number of words in the file. Okay. And in the line 24, the parent calls the write system call, and the parent executes different instruction. It just print the I'm a parent. It's going to print only the parent ID. But child executes the different instructions. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine, good, fine. Now, now we are going to discuss on shell. What do you mean by this? How does shell work? What is shell?
It's the command line.
Okay, okay, fine. Now, in any basic operating systems, in any operating system, init process is created first after the initialization. Right? We know that it is an ancestor process, right? This init process will have a whole bunch of process. The init has a whole bunch of process. One of the process is called shell. Okay, one of the process is called shell, and we call that as bash shell. You have different types of shell, and we mentioned one here that is called as bash shell. Okay.
Sir, can you repeat again about this bash shell?
Yeah, see what I mean to say here is when you after your initialization of operating system, the operating system creates the init process. Now init process is the ancestor, right? It is the grandfather for all the process. Now under this init process, you have a whole bunch of process. Under this init process, you have whole bunch of process, and in that bunch of process, we have one shell. You have multiple shell, and one cell is called as bash shell. You have C cell, you have Bron, BOURNE, Bron cell, and so on. You have multiple bunch of process. In that, one of the process is called as bash shell. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is when we boot up a system. When we boot up the system in the Windows, what we get? We get a command prompt. Can you see on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
When we boot up, when we start the system, we get a command prompt in the Windows environment. So this is what comes from shell. This command prompt comes from shell. Okay. Now what is shell? What is shell? What it does? In the screen, what are you going to do?
Interface. Like it's linked to OS.
Okay, link to OS. Okay, fine. Let me go to this. So here we have a shell. Okay. Now, what are you going to do here?
Sir, we can type a commands.
Good. Now it takes the user input, right? You type something, it takes the user input. Now this is the shell. It takes the user input and executes the program on behalf of the user. Okay, you just type the command, it takes only the input and it executes. You're not going to execute, right? You just give only the command, but on behalf of the user, the shell is going to execute this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now let us try to understand in more detail. Now what does the simple shell do? What does the simple shell does? Okay, fine. It will give a prompt like this. What do you mean by prompt? What do you mean by tilt dollar here? What do you mean by prompt here? On the command window, on the command prompt window, what do you mean by prompt?
It is representing the type of shell we are using right now.
Yeah, it asks, see, every time, okay, let's say that here if I write ls, okay, after it prints some output, again, it gives you a tilde and dollar. Every time iteratively, it prompts you for the user to type the command. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. First thing, understand this. First thing the simple shell do is it gives the prompt for the user to type the command. Only when you see this tilde and dollar, only then you can type the command. So every time the simple shell what does it gives us the prompt for the user to type the command. So once we type, the shell reads the user command, it forks the separate child process. What do you mean by this? Shell reads the user command and it forks a child. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? Okay, on the screen, I have a shell. It has prompt. So the user has entered the command ls. Now when we type ls command, what happens? The shell forks, okay? The shell forks a separate child process. That means the shell is a parent. When we type ls, the separate child process is created. And in the child process, we have exec command. Okay, you have an exec. This child process will execute the instruction of ls. Fine. All right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And this shell, when child is executing, the shell will invoke wait system call. It means what? When you invoke wait system call in the shell, what does it mean?
It waits for the child to terminate.
Yeah. Now, what is the child process code? What is the code of child process on the screen?
LS.
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 ls. So the child will execute the code of ls. Once it is completed, then the no, once it is completed execution, the output will be printed on the screen, and then the execution goes back to the shell. Right. Now, if you look at this, when I type ls, now the shell has created as child process. The child process executes the code of ls. Now after child executes, it prints the output. Then the control goes back to the cell. The cell is asking for next command to be typed from the user. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Understand this, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Good. Fine. Okay. Fine. Now the cell does something more funky things. It does many things. It does many funny things and funky things. What do you mean by this? Okay, fine. The cell is a process, right? The cell can manipulate the child in different way. Okay. One thing is when I type ls, the output is printed on. When you type ls, the output is printed on. The output is directed to
Child process.
okay. The output is printed on the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that std out, std in, every process will point to that std out? So child process will be pointed to std out. So when ls is executed, the output is printed on the screen, right? Now suppose if you want to redirect the output from the command to a file, that is, you don't want the output to be printed on the screen. Okay, whatever you see here, you don't want the output directly printed on the screen. Instead, you want this output to be directed to a file. So how you can do that? Okay, fine. Look, so we have a shell process. Okay, let me explain you. We have a shell process, code, data, stack, and heap. In the code of shell, it calls the fork. It calls the fork system call. That is, when you type ls, when you type ls in the cell, then the shell creates the child process. Now the child process will have a code for ls. Okay, now when the child process is created, the child process will be pointed to, the child process will be pointed to standard out, std out. Now what std out does here, what it does?
Display the output.
Good. Once the child process complete the execution, the output of ls will be displayed on the screen, because std out is a file pointer which is pointing to the child. Therefore, it displays the output on the screen. Suppose you want to redirect the output of ls to some file. Let's say that name of the file is foo.txt. How we can do this? You don't want the output to be on screen. You want the output in the file. So how we can do that? You have a code. So how we can do this? Suppose, let's say that ls, okay, ls is a command. I want to execute this. After execution, the output to be stored in foo.txt. Can you see the screen? Can you see my command?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So ls is a command, and I used a greater symbol followed by file name. Okay, foo.txt. Text is the format of a file. Now what I mean is, the output of ls will be directed to the text file, right? Now it is executed. Now your command is executed. The output of ls is stored in file foo.txt. Now how to see the content of a file? What is the command for that?
Cat and the file name.
Good. Cat and file name. So if I do this, foo.txt. Now, can you see the output? The text file which consists all of this list, all of this informations, vat, xy.term, okay? All of these different directories which is available currently in the system. Okay? All right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So all this can be done by the shell. Okay, we just redirect the output to be stored in some text by, we don't want to display on the screen, right? Now to understand this, if you look at this code, so the line 11, we use a fork system call, right? Now look at line 16. What do you observe here? What do you mean by close standout file number? What do you mean by close standout? You have a child process which is executes ls command, and initially operating system set up all of this, right? The file pointer file pointer std out to the child process. Operating system will make all of this setup. Once it is executed, the output will be printed on the screen. But now you're closing standard out. If you close standard out, what does it mean?
You're not printing the output on the screen.
Yeah, we are just closing this pointer, right? Standard out, the pointer is closed, and we are open in the line 17. We just open a new file name ./p4.output. This is the name of the file. We open this. So whatever the instruction executed by the child process will not be available on the screen, but it will be available in the file ./p4.output. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you look at this output, once this is executed, you say that cat p4.output, then it says you the number of lines, the number of words, the number of characters in a file, right? You understand this? These are all the different funky things done by a shell.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, fine, good. Now, yeah, so we done with process API, and we also done with shell programming. And tomorrow in lab, you'll be discussing more on a shell script. Okay, fine. So now let us try to understand process execution mechanisms. So this is very important. I request everyone to give more attentive. Right now. So in process execution mechanism, we will try to understand how the process are executed by the CPU and how the CPU switches between one process to the another process, right? That is what we are going to understand in process execution mechanism. In particularly, we are going to understand how operating system run a process. Now, what happens when we make a system call, how this system call is handled by the operating system, and what is the background mechanism when we make a context switch from one process to the other process, right? So this is what we are going to discuss in more detail. Fine. Now, the first is what happens during process execution. I have 3 points here. What happens during process execution? Can you tell me your idea what happens during process execution? I think first point is very easy. We have discussed that. Second is also easy, and third is also easy. We discussed this in the first class. Can you recall? What happens during process execution? Okay, fine, good. Yeah, please tell me. Go ahead.
So the first memory is created for the process details and like data.
Okay.
Then the program counter points to the starting instruction, the first instruction that's to be executed, and
Okay.
then the thing starts executing the process.
Good, very good. Now, first thing the operating system does is, during the process execution, the first thing the operating system does is, it creates a memory image of the process, right? Now we know that the memory image of a process consists of code, data, stack, and heap, right? Now, the second thing that operating system setup is, it sets up various registers of the CPU. Okay, in the CPU, what are the different registers you have?
Program counter, stack pointer.
Good. You have a program counter registers, you have a stack pointer, and then you have a data registers, right? You have multiple registers. Now operating system will set up PC, operating system will set up PC, and operating system will make a PC to point to some instruction in the code. Okay, and operating system will make the stack pointer to point the current position in the stack. Okay. Now, after this, after the memory, registers, CPU, file, all of this are set by operating system. Once everything is set, after setup, the operating system is out of the way. Okay, understand this? Operating system provides a memory for the process. It sets up the registers in the CPU for the process. Once all this setup is done by the operating system is out of the way. Right? Now, the process simply goes on and execute directly on the CPU. Okay? All right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is a valid point, right? Because in the memory image you have a code, and in the CPU you have a program counter, and we know that program counter point instruction by instruction. When PC point first instruction, that will be executed by the CPU. When the PC points the second instruction, that will be executed by the CPU. So once this memory image, the CPU, the file pointers, after all of this setup is done, the operating system will go out and the CPU will execute the process instruction. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, fine. Good. So before we go for the next one, do you have any questions so far?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So could you
Okay.
explain the last step?
This last bullet point.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the first thing that operating system does is it allocates a memory for the process, and the second what it does is it sets up the CPU. Right? Inside CPU we have multiple registers. The operating system will set up the program counter, stack pointer, and data registers. Once all of this setup is done, the operating system is out of the way. Okay. Now in CPU you have a program counter. Now the program counter will point to the first line of instruction in the code. So the CPU will execute that instruction, and then the PC will point the next line of instruction. Then the CPU will execute that. So once all of this setup is done, operating system will be out of the way.
Understood, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, fine, good. So before we understand how the system call works, let us try to understand how the simple function call works. Right? Now, the function call basically translates to jump in the program flow. Okay, it jumps in the program flow from one instruction to not to the next instruction, but it will jump some other instruction somewhere else. Okay, do you understand this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's say that when we write a simple C program, we write a function call in some line, and the instruction of the function will be written somewhere else, right?
Yes, sir.
Right? So let's say that in the code 1, I just make a function call. F is a function. I call this function, but the code of this function will be available somewhere else in the coding part, right? The code of this function will be available somewhere else in this code segment. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in the code, in the memory image of the code, we have called some function, and the code for this function is defined somewhere else in the program. right? Now, okay. Now, initially, you have a program counter. So the program counter points to the function call. When the PC is pointing to the function call, what does it mean? What do you mean by this? When you call the function, what is the next line to be executed? In which part of the code the PC will point to?
The body of the function.
Good. The PC has to point, the program counter has to point the instruction which is related to this function. Okay? All right?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Now, when we do this, what happens to the stack? When we do this, what happens to the stack?
The stack will contain the arguments of that function.
Yeah, good. Now, let us tell you again. Now, when we call the function, okay, the PC is pointing to the function call. Now we are calling the function. Now what happens to the stack? What happens to the stack now? Stack stores what?
The
Stores
function argument.
a function's argument. Good. Now, when the PC is pointing to the function call, what happens to the stack is the stack frame is created. Okay, the stack frame is created, and the old value of PC will be stored here. Okay, that is the old value of PC will be stored. That is the current PC value. Whatever the PC is pointed to the function, that value will be stored in the stack. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, when after when the PC is pointing to the function, the PC has to move to the instruction of the function, right? It has to move to the body of the instruction, a body of the function, which has the instruction of function. So when the PC is moving, the stack will be updated. When PC is pointed to the body of function, then the stack pointer will have an updated stack pointer value, updated PC value. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
You got now? The stack will have a value of the old PC value and the new PC value. Why we need to store old PC value? Why we want to store the old PC value?
I guess when we context switch, that's why we just need to, remember like when we just left the program.
Good. When the body of the function is completed execution, we have to go back to the line where the function is called, right? Do you agree with this?
Yes, sir.
You call the function, so the function has some code of instruction, so the PC points to that and we are going to execute it, and after execution of body of function we have to go back to the function call. So the PC will the stack will store the old PC value, the old address, that line of instruction, so that the CPU can go back to that particular address. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the old value of PC pushed to the stack and PC get updated. Okay. Fine. So now your stack frame will have a function argument. What it stores? It will store the function argument the return value, and so on. That is old value is called as return value. All right. You understand this?
Yes, sir.
Everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Good. Fine. Now, how is the system call is different from a function call? How is a system call is different from a function call? This is very important. Okay, so we'll discuss this in the next class. Okay, I think this is very important. So we'll end here. In tomorrow class, we'll try to discuss how the system call is different from function call. Okay, before that, I request you to read all of this. At least just go through point what you see on the screen, and then we'll have a complete discussion on this. All right. So any questions to ask?
Sir, will the stack frame will also contain the updated value of PC?
Yeah, the stack will also have an updated value of PC. Yeah. So now, yeah, let me make one more diagram for you. Here you have a memory image, you have a PC. Now here you have a code, and you make a function call. Now the PC, when the PC points to this function call, okay, in the stack pointer will have, and the stack pointer is pointing to the current PC, right? So the current PC, whatever the code the current PC points, it has some address, it has some value that is stored in the stack now at this point of time. When we make a function call, the PC has to move to the body of the function, right? Therefore, the PC will point, that body of function will be available somewhere else in the code, maybe in the next line, maybe after 10 line. So the PC will point to that body of function. When PC is pointing to that, the stack frame get updated with new PC value. Old PC value also there, and the new PC value is also there. Why that? Why we need to store old PC value?
To go back again after the execution of the function.
Good. That is valid point, right? Once the function is executed, then the CPU has to go back where it is stopped, right? Once the body of the function is executed, it has to go back to the line of the function call instruction, and PC will point to the next line of the function call, and it will continue the execution instruction by instructions. All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good. So any further questions to ask?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. So here, let me give you a quiz for the day. I request everyone to complete. And for lab tomorrow, we are going to deal with shell programming, shell script. All right.
Okay,
Can
sir.
we- Yeah, good. So can we end for the day?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day. Please try to complete the quiz. Okay, all right. So have a good day. Bye-bye, everyone.